There were things that I was successful at, but long-term relationships were not one of them. And I felt that it was really not my destiny to have a long-term relationship, and marriage really didn't interest me.
A black limousine stops at the studio gates. The door opens, and Victoria Principal steps out in a form-fitting white dress, her brown hair cascading loosely, her eyes gleaming like a blade. They say she knew her lines down to every semicolon, inspected every angle of the lights, reworked entire scripts before the camera rolled, and was always the last to leave the set once every detail had reached perfection. As Pamela Barnes Ewing in Dallas, Victoria once captivated the entire television world of the 1980s, yet behind those lights was a woman who refused to let her life be defined by a single role. She had won the admiration of Frank Sinatra, been Anthony Perkins' first true physical love, and left Andy Gibb, the young voice of the Bee Gees, haunted by a passion he could never forget. Her two marriages, one ending in silence, the other collapsing under fractures that could scarcely be named, only deepened the portrait of a woman who chose loyalty to herself over living to please others. Today, at 75, Victoria Principal no longer stands before the cameras. She lives on an animal rescue ranch, far removed from the noise of Hollywood. Perhaps after all the burning loves and all the times she chose to walk away, the only thing she has ever truly wished to keep is her freedom. Victoria Principal was born on January 3, 1950 in Fukuoka, Japan, into an American military family. Her birth name was Vicki Ree Principal. Her father, Victor Principal, was a U.S. Air Force officer, while her mother, Ree Principal, a woman of English descent, was known for her strength and resilience. From the very beginning, Victoria's life was a series of endless relocations, from Japan, England, and Puerto Rico to Florida, Georgia, Massachusetts, and beyond. Throughout her childhood, she changed schools more than 17 times. No house lasted long enough to be called home. No friendship endured. The only constant in her life was change itself. At just 5 years old, Victoria first appeared in front of a camera, starring in a television commercial. She was too young to fully grasp it, but the experience planted in her a strange curiosity toward the lens, a feeling both unfamiliar and compelling. Yet, as she grew older, Victoria did not initially plan to pursue the arts. She intended to study medicine at Miami-Dade Community College, hoping for the stability of a secure profession. Then fate struck. A severe car accident caused by a drunk driver left her gravely injured, forcing her to spend months in the hospital. It was in that painful, quiet stretch of time that Victoria began to reconsider her life. She realized that if she was given a second chance, she would follow her heart, becoming an actress. After recovering, Victoria decisively turned down the safe path. She went to New York, auditioned for roles, worked as a commercial model to get by, and then packed her bags for London. There, she enrolled at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, RADA, one of the world's most prestigious drama schools. In class, she was the outsider American, yet her relentless diligence impressed even the harshest instructors. With rigorous discipline, formal training, and the ability to discover her own acting voice, Victoria quickly matured. From a girl with no hometown, Victoria Principal transformed herself into a citizen of the world. And from behind the doors of that academy, she stepped onto a journey no one had foreseen. A television star, a millionaire entrepreneur, and a woman who would spend her life seeking freedom on her own terms. After completing her studies at RADA, Victoria Principal returned to the United States with a clear determination. to break into Hollywood, no matter how treacherous the road. In her early days in New York and later Los Angeles, she accepted any job that came her way, modeling in commercials, playing tiny background roles, even attending dozens of auditions each week. With her striking looks, alluring figure, and the discipline instilled by formal training, it didn't take long for Victoria to catch the attention of directors. Her first big break came in 1972 when the legendary director John Huston cast her in The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, opposite none other than Paul Newman. The role earned Victoria a Golden Globe nomination for Most Promising Newcomer, a dream start few ever achieve. Almost overnight, her name graced the covers of major magazines, hailed as one of Hollywood's most promising new faces. But that sweet dream soon crumbled. Follow-up films such as Earthquake, 1974, and Vigilante Force, 1976, failed to make an impact, and her career stalled. Hollywood is a ruthless machine. Today's rising star can become yesterday's forgotten name within a year. For Victoria, the mid-1970s were a period of instability when leading roles slipped away and she survived on commercials and bit parts. There were moments when Victoria considered giving up. She later recalled in an interview, "I thought maybe Hollywood just wasn't meant for me. But then I remembered that accident years ago. I had promised myself that if I ever got a second chance at life, I would do what made me happiest." That promise kept her going, and fate opened the door once more. In 1977, Victoria auditioned for a new CBS television project about a wealthy Texas oil family, Dallas. At first, she doubted she would be chosen, but with her unique blend of Latin allure and classic American beauty, combined with her sharp command of dialogue, she won over the producers. The role of Pamela Barnes Ewing, a gentle yet strong woman caught between her love for Bobby Ewing and the bitter feud between two powerful families, was hers. Victoria had no idea that this role would transform her from a struggling actress into one of the biggest television stars of the 1980s. When Dallas premiered in 1978, no one expected it to become a global phenomenon. The saga of the Texas oil-rich Ewing family, full of schemes, betrayals, love, and vengeance, captivated tens of millions of viewers each week. Amid this frenzy, Victoria Principal shone brightly as Pamela Barnes Ewing, the loyal, gentle, yet steadfast wife of Bobby Ewing. Pamela was never just the pretty woman in a story of power and ambition. She was the conscience, the voice of reason and love, the counterpoint to J.R. Ewing's ruthless cruelty. Thanks to Victoria, Pamela became an icon, a woman who dared to love, who dared to stand against oppression, yet carried within her a profound loneliness. Many critics hailed Pamela as the human heart of Dallas, and Victoria Principal as the soul that brought her to life. In the 1980s, Dallas broke beyond American borders, airing in over 90 countries. At the height of the Cold War, even the Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc nations broadcast the show, proof of its extraordinary reach. Millions of viewers from Europe, Asia, and South America knew the name Victoria Principal. She became a regular cover star for Time, People, and countless fashion magazines, celebrated as one of America's true television goddesses. But Victoria did not stop at acting. During her years on Dallas, she leveraged her fame to expand her career, appearing in other television series, producing her own projects, and authoring books on beauty and lifestyle. In 1983, she released The Body Principle, which quickly became a bestseller, cementing a new image, not just an actress, but a woman inspiring others to live healthily and confidently. Yet, At the peak of glory came the weight of pressure. After nearly a decade, Victoria felt Pamela's role had grown repetitive, and she refused to be confined. In 1987, at the very height of her fame, she made a decision that shocked Hollywood. She left Dallas. In an interview, she explained, "If I don't have the courage to walk away, I'll never find myself outside of this character." It was a bold move, one that revealed her true resolve. Victoria Principal was determined not to remain just a television star, but to be a woman in full control of her career and her life. Behind the cool beauty she carried on screen, Victoria Principal's love life was a succession of fiery romances, each marked by passion, but also shadowed by heartbreak. Before her fateful entanglement with Andy Gibb, Victoria Principal had experienced fleeting romances, short-lived, incomplete, yet powerful enough to etch themselves deeply into memory. They did not last, nor were they ever meant to, but they revealed hidden facets of a young woman's soul. Curious, yearning, easily wounded, yet coldly rational when forced to choose. In the early 1970s, when Victoria was still a fresh face in Hollywood, she unexpectedly went on a few dates with Frank Sinatra, the living legend, a towering figure of power and charisma, nearly 35 years her senior. Sinatra's presence in her life was not a tender romance, but more like a sudden whirlwind, overwhelming, distant, and leaving her with a stark sense of smallness. Victoria never shared details, only once admitting cautiously, "I admired him greatly, but the distance between us was too vast to ever dream of something lasting." Her words seemed gentle, yet they carried a harsh truth. No amount of glamour could bridge the suffocating gap between a man at the peak of mythic fame and a young woman just starting her career. The brief encounter left her with a feeling both proud and bitter. Even before Sinatra, Victoria had stepped into the fragile world of Anthony Perkins, the actor who had shocked the globe with Psycho. But behind the spotlight, Perkins was a man fraught with insecurities, trapped in conflicts over his sexuality and the crushing weight of social expectations. During that time, Victoria became the first woman to share with him a physical love affair, an experience Perkins carried with him for life, and one Victoria later confirmed with words both tender and sorrowful. "We were both lost, yet we were so gentle with each other." It was never eternal love. There were no promises, no bonds, only two lonely souls who, for a brief moment, found a place to rest. Perkins needed a hand to remind him he was not entirely abandoned by a judgmental world. Victoria, in the sensitivity of youth, needed a gaze that acknowledged her presence could heal someone, even if only for a fleeting instant. And when it ended, what remained was not regret for an unfinished romance, but a lingering ache of a love that was beautiful, fragile, and haunting enough to be remembered for a lifetime. From youthful romances, Victoria stepped into a new threshold: marriage. In her youth, she believed marriage could be a refuge, a shield against the invisible storms of Hollywood. Yet the very thing called stability became her first wound in private life. In 1978, Victoria Principal stood at the height of her career as Pamela Barnes Ewing in Dallas, the series on the verge of becoming a global television phenomenon. Amid the dazzling glow of success, fate brought her Christopher Skinner, an actor and filmmaker recognized for James at 16, and later seen in CHIPS, as well as Dallas itself in a guest role. They met in what seemed like a fleeting moment, but stirred something powerful in their hearts. After just 3 dates, they decided to marry. A hasty decision, But for Victoria at the time, it carried the illusion of wholeness. She once described her feelings as she entered that marriage. Completely whole. There was really something there. The wedding was solemn, illuminated by hope and belief. Victoria in an elegant white lace gown, smiling radiantly as if failure had never touched her. Skinner in a black three-piece suit, composed and confident, as though life had led them to each other at exactly the right moment. But harsh reality came faster than either expected. Victoria devoted nearly 75 hours a week to the set, consumed by the relentless pace of a television star. Skinner longed for a home with a wife always present, caring and nurturing the family. That was impossible for Victoria, not out of selfishness, but because she knew to abandon her career was to abandon herself. For her, the only choice was to live fully for her role, for her passion, even if it meant creating a distance that could never be bridged. By 1980, they had separated. A year later, their divorce was finalized quietly, without scandal or headlines. Victoria never once criticized her ex-husband. To her, it was not a failure, but a life experience. Skinner, after leaving the marriage, gradually withdrew from the spotlight. Once a sought-after face, he chose a quiet life, remaining single to this day. As if the short-lived marriage with Victoria left a scar that made him unwilling to risk again. Victoria's first marriage, with all its initial thrill and eventual silence, stood as a bitter reminder that youthful haste can leave nameless wounds. 3 dates may be enough to walk down the aisle, but never enough to know if two people truly share the same direction. And when the white veil is lifted, the truth emerges starkly. Not every love can save us from loneliness, and not every marriage can bring peace. If her first marriage had been a hasty, ill-prepared decision, then Victoria's next relationship was a plunge too deep. A love that blazed brilliantly, only to consume them both in tragedy. Less than a year after signing her divorce papers with Christopher Skinner, Victoria met Andy Gibb, the youngest of the Bee Gees, on the John Davidson Show in January 1981. It was an instant spark, a lightning strike. People called it immediate chemistry. Victoria was 31 at the time, already a dazzling star of Dallas. Andy was just 23, handsome, charming, but fragile and unstable, freshly dismissed from Solid Gold for tardiness and shadowed by drugs. On live television, he confessed, "I only watch Dallas because of her." To the public, it was a sweet flirtation. To Victoria, it was innocent admiration. But to those who truly knew Andy, it was a cry for help from a drifting soul desperate for an anchor. They fell into each other without hesitation. They appeared publicly at events, filmed together on TV, and even recorded the duet "All I Have to Do Is Dream," the only single of Victoria's music career and the final one of Andy's. The song made it onto the Billboard Hot 100, peaking at 51, a fragile testament to what seemed like a beautiful love. But beneath the sweet surface, it was already a requiem. Victoria was working herself to exhaustion, 75 hours a week on set. Yet Andy was always there, clinging to every spare moment she had. He called incessantly, leaving dozens of messages when she didn't answer. Once, he waited outside the studio gates for 4 hours just to see her for a few minutes. To Victoria, it felt like devotion at first. To her friends and colleagues, it was a dangerous warning. One close associate admitted, "Andy didn't love Victoria, he was addicted to her presence." The differences grew starker. After one failed marriage, Victoria had no wish to remarry. She craved freedom, the right to steer her own life. Andy, on the other hand, was spiraling out of control, his love turning into obsession, his fear of losing her driving him further into drugs to dull the panic. By March 1982, Victoria delivered an ultimatum. "It's me or the drugs. You have to choose." But Andy couldn't. And so she was the one who walked away. Years later, she admitted, "I did everything I could to help him. But in the end, I had to tell him. He would have to choose between me and his problem." After the breakup, Andy collapsed into despair. He stopped performing, refused the recording studio, ran out of money. Friends drifted away. His record label cut ties. At one point, he lay bedridden for 2 weeks, unable to rise. His heart, both literally and figuratively, was breaking. On March 10th, 1988, Andy Gibb died of viral myocarditis, just 2 days after his 30th birthday. The official report cited illness, but to many his death was no coincidence. It was the end result of a collapse in love, fame, and self. Victoria did not appear publicly at the funeral. She kept silent, leaving an absence that only deepened the haunting weight of the tragedy. Years later, when asked if she regretted anything, she answered, "I once hoped he would find peace, but I never imagined that peace would be death." Her words cut like a blade. They were not only a farewell to a lost love, but a quiet confession of the torment she still carried. And to this day, one must wonder, did she ever truly shed that memory? Or does she still bear the unhealed wound of a doomed angel who burned himself out in the fire of their love? After the fiery and devastating romance with Andy Gibb, Victoria Principal said she longed for peace, but destiny never seemed to grant her calm for long. In early 1983, she met Harry Glassman, a renowned Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. When both were in pain, Victoria, fresh from a destructive love, Glassman embroiled in legal battles with his ex-wife. Rumors swirled that the ring he gave her was a recycled wedding band, fueling gossip. Victoria cut through the noise with a sharp reply. "I bought that ring for myself, for my 33rd birthday." A simple line, yet a declaration of independence from a woman who had endured too many losses. Perhaps it was from those fractures that they found in each other a fragile peace, soon turning into commitment. Victoria not only loved Harry, but also embraced his 2 children, caring for them as her own. And on June 23, 1985, at the height of her Dallas fame, she walked down the aisle once more. They lived in a nearly 7,000-square-foot Beverly Hills mansion, away from cameras, rarely sharing their private life. To the public eye, this was a different Victoria, mature, discreet, holding her husband's hand on the Golden Globes red carpet or at charity galas. An image that seemed close to perfect, yet they had no children together. Whispers spread that she feared losing her figure. In a rare interview, Victoria revealed her private grief. "I don't have children not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't." A small crack, but a real one. And as with all cracks, it widened over time. 21 years of togetherness ended in May 2006 when Victoria filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. By December, it was finalized. But why did a seemingly stable marriage collapse? The first signs surfaced in 2002 when Beverly Hills police unexpectedly raided their home. Reports describe scars on Victoria's eyes, lips, neck, and cheeks, Glassman was arrested, posted bail of £35,000, and was released. He blamed it on Victoria's drinking, calling it a misunderstanding. The charges were dropped, but the shadow of suspicion never lifted. By the time of their divorce, darker rumors circulated that Glassman had performed plastic surgery on his wife, kept all her confidential records, and even used them as leverage. The press claimed Victoria paid over $50 million in settlements, despite having a prenuptial agreement. She shot back fiercely. "I didn't pay for silence. I paid to get my peace back." The divorce was not loud like typical Hollywood scandals, but it was far darker. No one knows exactly what happened behind the closed doors of their Beverly Hills mansion. What was certain, Victoria once again chose to walk away, not because she hadn't tried, but because she refused to live in a love without respect. 2 decades came to an end, leaving behind the bitter aftertaste of stability that was nothing more than a thin shell covering wounds unseen. Beyond her fleeting romances and tragic love stories, Victoria Principal once again ignited a media storm with a shocking event. On December 26, 2005, just one day after Christmas, the calm atmosphere of her Malibu estate suddenly turned into a frenzy. Her longtime housekeeper, Maribel Banegas, had taken Victoria's beloved dog for a walk, but returned late, with the animal coughing violently, its back injured, and showing traces of blood. To Victoria, who had long treated her pets like her own children, this was an offense she could not accept. An argument erupted in the living room. Furious, Victoria demanded answers, pressing for an explanation that never came. According to Banegas's allegations, the actress drew a revolver from inside the house, pointed it directly at her, and shouted, "I'll shoot you if you don't leave this house immediately." Banegas further claimed the real reason behind the threat was her demand for unpaid wages. Victoria immediately denied the accusation, insisting she had acted out of self-defense and to protect her endangered pet. She maintained that the housekeeper had shown signs of aggression and that holding the gun was merely an instinctive reaction. No criminal charges were filed, but the story itself was enough to shock the public. This was the same Victoria Principal who had cultivated an image of elegance and compassion, retreating into nature and animals to embody the role of the healing woman. Now, she was portrayed with a gun in her hand, threatening the life of the very woman employed under her roof. Major outlets quickly seized the story. People and ABC News ran continuous coverage, while the Telegraph remarked that it was a violent collision of two worlds, the compassionate star and the shadow of her own power. In the end, Maribel Banegas withdrew her lawsuit and issued a formal apology. But the aftermath was not so easily erased. From that moment, Victoria Principal's image was never quite the same. She remained the woman devoted to animals and nature, but the public began to see another darker shade in her portrait. A Victoria willing to protect her peace by the most extreme means. Alongside a love life filled with storms, Victoria Principal wrote an entirely different chapter. The chapter of a CEO, a model of independence, success, and resilience. And that was no accident. Behind the glamorous image on television was a woman who had quietly suffered for years with her own skin. During the grueling Dallas years, 75-hour work weeks, heavy makeup, and blazing studio lights, her face grew dry, lifeless, and exhausted. Victoria admitted, "I used to cry when I looked in the mirror. And I thought, if I, who had every means of care, still felt hopeless, then what about other women?" From that deeply personal experience, in 1989, she founded Principal Secret, a skincare line focused on restoration and nourishment. Unlike many Hollywood stars who merely lent their names, Victoria was directly involved in every step, testing formulas on her own skin, rejecting products with fragrances too harsh, even writing the ad copy herself. Her message was simple yet powerful. Women don't need to change themselves to be beautiful. They only need patience and gentleness with who they already are. Even as a CEO, Victoria refused to rely on gimmicks. Her commercials featured no 20-somethings, no flashy tricks of lighting, only Victoria at 40, looking straight into the camera and saying, "There was a time I didn't recognize myself, but I've learned how to love myself again." That honesty turned Principal Secret into the leading television-driven skincare brand for over 25 years, building a loyal community of customers, largely middle-aged women who had long felt overlooked by the beauty industry. As a result, experts estimate that Principal Secret generated over $1 billion in revenue across 3 decades. Victoria's personal fortune, thanks to it, was valued between $200 and $300 million, far surpassing her acting income. She stood alongside business icons like Jessica Alba, Honest Company, and Cindy Crawford, Meaningful Beauty. But her difference was striking. Victoria didn't need social media, didn't need relentless PR. She built an empire on discipline, faith in her product, and her own persistence. Still, success was never without turbulence. The press once cynically asked, was her then-husband, plastic surgeon Harry Glassman, the true force behind the natural beauty Victoria promoted? She did not lash out, nor try to prove herself. She chose silence. The silence of a woman who knows her own worth, needing no validation from the world. By 2019, after more than 2 decades at the helm, Victoria quietly stepped away. No press conference, no grand farewell. Just a short statement. It's time to devote my energy to something else, like nature, animals, and peace. And just as she had once walked away from Hollywood at her peak, Victoria again chose to step down, on her own terms. It was not an ending, but a choice. The choice of a woman who had already proven everything and who now decided to live authentically, without compromise, without permission, and without anyone's approval. After closing the chapter of Dallas and her cosmetics empire, Victoria Principal chose a life few could have imagined. Leaving Hollywood, leaving the stage, and retreating into the quiet of nature. She bought a vast ranch in Malibu with lush fields, rolling meadows, and areas dedicated to abandoned animals. For Victoria, it was not just a home, it was a land of healing. There, she cared for dozens of creatures, dogs, cats, horses, birds, even rescued wildlife. Each had a name. Each was treated as family. "I spent half my life appearing on screen," she once said. "The other half, I want to devote to those beings who have no voice to defend themselves." Beyond the ranch, Victoria established the Victoria Principal Foundation for Thoughtful Existence, focusing on the environment, education, and animal welfare. From disaster relief and marine conservation to healthcare support for women and children, she quietly poured millions into projects few ever heard her name attached to. No press conferences, no campaigns, only silent acts, in line with the way she lived. One striking detail: Victoria was among the few celebrities who reserved a seat on Virgin Galactic to fly into space. For many, it was an extravagant indulgence. For her, it was a symbol of the yearning to transcend limits. "I want to see the Earth from above," she explained. "To understand how small all the things we fight over down here really are. Today, she lived quietly in Malibu and Big Sur, sometimes spending time in Switzerland. She does not attend events, does not give interviews. The rare public image left of her is that of a woman with long brown hair, in jeans and a simple shirt, walking her dog along the California shore. Far removed from the spotlight, but her eyes have never lost their glow. A calmer light now, one that no stage is needed to illuminate. Some call it seclusion. But for Victoria Principal, it is an intentional choice. After all, fame, love, loss, success, what she desires most is simply to hear the waves, the breath of the wind, and the quiet call of the small creatures around her. In her 70s, Victoria Principal has all but vanished from Hollywood, the place that once elevated her to stardom, but also exacted lifelong scars. She no longer appears on talk shows, attends red carpets, or bothers to maintain an image through social media. On rare occasions, she is seen in grainy paparazzi shots from Malibu. Brown hair streaked with silver, little to no makeup, jeans and a simple blouse, walking her dog like any ordinary woman along the vast California coast. Yet that ordinary life is the hard-won result of decades of struggle. Victoria no longer needs the audience's approval or the press's praise. She has found peace in simple things, planting flowers, caring for animals, meditating, jotting down quiet notes about life. As one close friend shared, Victoria lives as though every day is a gift, not a race anymore. In the few interviews she gave before retreating completely, she confided, "I never sought perfection. I only wanted freedom. The freedom to do what I believed in, to love who I wanted, and to walk away when it was time." That line reads like the summary of her entire life. A woman who dared to step away from the spotlight, leave marriages where love had faded, and even withdraw from a multi-million-dollar empire she herself had built. Now, at 74, Victoria still carries the aura of a star, not through makeup or glamour, but through something else: self-possession. She has chosen to live anonymous in freedom, leaving the past where it belongs and entering old age not with regret, but with acceptance. For those who look back, Victoria Principal is not defined solely by Pamela Ewing in Dallas or by her success as a millionaire CEO. She stands as proof that a woman can endure love, loss, glory, and scandal, and still remain whole, shaped, and strengthened by her own choices. Victoria Principal lived a life far from tranquil, a rootless childhood, a near-fatal accident that almost stole her dream, passionate loves that ended in heartbreak, 2 marriages, one brief, one long, both dissolving in divorce, the building of a billion-dollar cosmetics empire, and finally, the choice to retreat into nature and animals. None of this was meant to paint the portrait of a flawless star, but rather to reveal a flesh-and-blood woman, strong, vulnerable, resilient, and full of contradictions. In her 70s, she no longer seeks the spotlight, only a life of peace that feels true to herself. When we think of Victoria Principal, we remember not only Pamela Ewing in Dallas, but also her journey of standing up after collapse, of protecting herself against storms, and of daring to live life on her own terms. That is her true legacy, not fame, but the pride of a woman who never surrendered. What part of Victoria Principal's journey moves you the most? Is it the tragic love with Andy Gibb, the long but broken marriage with Dr. Harry Glassman, or her bold decision to walk away from Hollywood in search of peace? Share your thoughts in the comments below as we reflect on this turbulent yet luminous journey. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss other Hollywood destinies, lives both glorious and tragic. just like Victoria Principal's.